Commander Kyung-ho pressed his clawed fingers against the cold metal of the command console. The bridge of the Nexus destroyer hummed with activity as screens flickered with data from 1,000 ships. Through the massive viewport, Earth appeared, small and blue, spinning slowly like a jewel against the black of space. "Look at it," Kyung-ho whispered to himself. After jumping through hyperspace for weeks, they had finally reached their target. This little planet would be just another victory in their long list of conquests. The Draconian Empire had been unstoppable for 300 years. They would arrive at a world, demand surrender, and if the inhabitants refused, they would turn the planet into ash and dust. It was always the same pattern: fear, then fighting, then silence. Jin Woo, his tactical officer, approached with a datapad in his hands. His scales were darker than Kyung-ho's, marking him as coming from the outer colonies. "Admiral, our scans are complete. This planet they call Earth has no real defenses." Kyung-ho turned his yellow eyes toward the younger officer. "What did you find?" "Their most advanced weapons are primitive missiles that use chemical fuel. No energy shields, no plasma cannons, no faster-than-light travel. They're split into hundreds of small nations that can't even work together." Jin Woo's voice carried a hint of disappointment. "This will be easier than the Centauri colonies." The commander nodded slowly. He had hoped for at least some challenge. The last few worlds had surrendered without firing a shot once they saw the size of his fleet. Where was the honor in conquering people who gave up immediately? "Sir, should we begin the standard protocol?" asked Sumin, his communications officer. Her voice was crisp and professional, as always. "Yes. Open a channel to their largest population centers. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate our power." Kyung-ho straightened his uniform and walked toward the center of the bridge. But something felt different about this approach. Usually their sensors would detect frantic military movements on the surface, ships launching, weapons powering up, desperate attempts to mount some kind of defense. Instead, the readings showed something strange. "Jinwoo, are you sure about these scans?" Kyung-ho called out. "Yes, sir, I've run them 3 times. Their military installations are quiet. Too quiet." Dongmin, the senior science officer, looked up from his station with a puzzled expression. "Commander, I'm detecting unusual energy. Patterns. From their weapon systems?" "No, sir, from empty space itself. It's almost like something is watching us, but there's nothing there on visual or standard sensors." Kyung-ho felt a chill run down his spine. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something was wrong here. "Move the fleet into bombardment formation, but keep our shields at maximum power," he ordered. The massive ships began to shift positions like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. Each vessel was the size of a small city, bristling with enough firepower to level continents. The humans below should be panicking right now, sending desperate radio signals, maybe even trying to evacuate their cities. Instead, Earth remained eerily calm. "Sir," Sumin reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it through." Instead of screams or pleas for mercy, a clear voice came through the speakers. The language was strange, but their computers quickly translated it. "Welcome to the Sol system. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The bridge fell silent. Jinwoo's mouth hung open. Even the normally composed Dongmin looked shocked. "They're welcoming us?" Jinwoo stammered. "It gets stranger, sir," Sumin added. "The transmission includes mathematical formulas and what appear to be star charts, very detailed ones." Kyung-ho studied the data streaming across his screens. These weren't the desperate calculations of a doomed species trying to buy time. The mathematics were elegant, precise, almost beautiful. The star charts showed not just their local area, but regions of space the Draconians themselves had never fully mapped. "How could a primitive species have such detailed knowledge of the galaxy?" Dongmin muttered. "Perhaps they're not as primitive as we assumed," Kyung-ho replied quietly. The energy readings were getting stronger now. Whatever was out there in the empty space around them was becoming more active. His tactical displays showed nothing, but every instinct screamed that they were being watched, studied, perhaps even surrounded by something invisible. "Sir, all human military installations have just gone offline," Jinwoo reported, his voice tight with concern. "Destroyed?" "No, sir, they just stopped. No explosions, no energy discharges. They simply powered down simultaneously across the entire planet." For the first time in his long military career, Commander Kyung-ho felt truly uncertain about a conquest. Dr. Min Seo sat in her chair 300 feet below the bustling streets of Seoul. Above her, millions of people went about their daily lives, completely unaware that alien warships now filled their sky. The underground facility stretched for miles in every direction, its corridors lined with technology that would seem like magic to anyone from the surface world. She watched the main display screen as dark shapes moved across Earth's atmosphere like storm clouds. Each alien ship was massive, easily the size of a football stadium. There were so many of them that they actually blocked out sunlight in some regions, casting entire cities into an eerie twilight. "Ma'am, the surface governments are going crazy. Up there," reported her assistant Hyo Jin, monitoring global communications. "The president is demanding military action. The UN is calling emergency sessions. Social media is completely losing it." Min Seo nodded calmly. She had expected this reaction. For 50 years, a small group of humans had known this day would come. They had prepared, planned, and built in secret, while the rest of humanity remained focused on their daily problems. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at stations that hummed with quiet energy. The computers here didn't look like anything from the surface world. Instead of clicking keyboards and glowing monitors, holographic displays floated in the air, while operators moved their hands through light patterns to control systems. "Director, incoming transmission from Site 7 in Montana," called out Jun-ho from across the room. "Put it through." A woman's face appeared on one of the floating screens. "Min Seo, our deep space sensors are tracking exactly 1,043 vessels. They match the Draconian signature we've been expecting. Any deviation from the predicted approach pattern? None. They're following the same tactical formation they've used on the last 15 worlds they conquered. These aliens really don't like changing their methods." Min Seo allowed herself a small smile. Predictability was humanity's greatest advantage in this situation, while the Draconians had been conquering their way across the galaxy using the same strategies over and over. Earth's hidden scientists had been studying every battle, learning every pattern. "Begin Phase 1, she announced to the room. Dong-hyun looked up from his station. "Transmission ready, Director." She took a deep breath. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. Send the greeting protocol. Instead of the panicked radio chatter the aliens probably expected, Earth began broadcasting a single, calm message across all frequencies. "Welcome to the Sol System. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." But the message contained much more than simple words. Embedded within the transmission were mathematical sequences that would take the aliens several minutes to decode. Prime numbers, geometric formulas, and physics equations that demonstrated a deep understanding of the universe. More importantly, the message included detailed star charts, not just maps of Earth's local area, but precise locations of star systems across thousands of light years. Information that should have been impossible for a primitive planet to possess. "Hyo Jin, what's the reaction from their fleet?" Min Seo asked. "Their communication traffic just spiked. Lots of confused chatter between ships. I think we surprised them. On the surface, world leaders were demanding answers that their military advisors couldn't provide. Fighter jets scrambled into the sky, only to be politely but firmly turned back by invisible force fields. Nuclear submarines found their weapon systems mysteriously offline. Every piece of military hardware on the planet had been quietly and painlessly disabled. Phase 2 is complete," reported Chang Min from the Defense Coordination Station. "All surface military assets are now in safe mode." This had been the hardest part to plan. They needed to disable Earth's conventional military without causing panic or making the aliens suspicious. Every missile, every gun, every tank had been equipped with hidden control systems over the past decade. Military leaders thought they were installing routine upgrades, but they were actually allowing the underground facilities to take remote control when needed. "The aliens are trying to scan our military installations," Jun-ho announced, "but all they're seeing is everything going dark simultaneously." Min Seo nodded. To the Draconians, it would look like Earth's military had simply shut down all at once. They wouldn't be able to tell if it was a defensive measure, a system failure, or something else entirely. The uncertainty would make them cautious. "Director, we're getting responses to our greeting message," Donghyun said. "The alien commander sounds confused. He's demanding to know how we obtained the star charts we sent them." "Perfect. Confusion is exactly what we want right now." Above them, Commander Kyung-ho was probably staring at his displays in bewilderment. The star charts Earth had transmitted included detailed maps of Draconian territory, complete with the locations of their conquered worlds, military bases, and even some secret installations they thought no one knew about. "How long until they realize we've been watching them?" asked Hyojin. "A few more hours, I'd guess. Right now they're trying to figure out if we're a threat or just incredibly lucky. Once they understand that we've been studying them for decades, things will get interesting." Minseo looked around the control room at her team. These men and women had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment, working in secret, while their families and friends lived normal lives above ground. Soon, everything would change for humanity. Commander Kyung-ho's patience had finally run out. For hours his fleet had waited in perfect bombardment formation, while the strange little planet below continued sending its polite messages. No world had ever responded to Draconian arrival with such calm confidence. It was unsettling and frankly insulting. "Enough games," he growled, his scaled fist slamming down on the command console. "These humans think they can mock us with their mathematics and star charts. Time to show them what happens when you ignore Draconian power." He turned to face his weapons officer. "Target their largest population centers. I want every plasma battery charged to maximum yield." "Yes, sir," Wu Jin responded, his claws clicking rapidly across the targeting controls. "All ships report weapons systems fully charged and ready." The bridge hummed with anticipation. This was the moment that always came, when words failed and superior firepower spoke instead. Kyung-ho had done this dance 100 times before. The fear in the enemy's communications always started right about now. "Fire all plasma batteries," Kyung-ho commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. He waited for the familiar sight of energy beams lancing toward the planet below, waited for the satisfying readings of successful target acquisition, waited for the beginning of another world's end. Nothing happened. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Kyung-ho stared at the forward viewport, expecting to see the brilliant flashes of plasma fire. Instead, he saw only empty space and the blue world spinning peacefully below. "Wu Jin, what's the delay?" he demanded. The weapons officer's face had gone pale, his yellow eyes wide with confusion. "Sir, all weapon systems show green across the board. Full power, perfect targeting solutions, no mechanical failures detected." "Then why didn't they fire?" I don't know, sir. Everything looks normal, but nothing is happening when I activate the firing sequence." Kyung-ho felt his stomach clench with a familiar sense of dread. In 3 centuries of conquest, weapon systems didn't just fail to work for no reason. Technology this advanced didn't suffer from mysterious glitches at the worst possible moment. "Sir," Jin-woo's voice cracked with fear from his tactical station, "the outer perimeter ships, they're gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Kyung-ho spun around to face the tactical display. The holographic representation of his fleet showed empty space where 12 destroyer-class vessels should have been positioned. No explosions, no debris fields, no distress signals. The ships had simply vanished, as if they had never existed. "Where did they go?" Kyung-ho demanded, moving closer to the display. "I don't know, sir. One moment they were there, the next moment our sensors show nothing. No energy signatures, no wreckage. Nothing." Before Jin-woo could finish explaining, more ships began disappearing from the tactical display. The outer ring of cruisers flickered and vanished, like lights being switched off. Then the battleships in the second formation. Then the heavy assault vessels. Panic began spreading through the bridge crew. Officers abandoned their posts to crowd around the tactical display, watching in horror as their mighty fleet dissolved into nothingness. "Sir, Captain Young-soo from the Thunderstrike is reporting that the Iron Fang just vanished right in front of them," Soo-min announced from her communication station. "No explosion, no warning. It was there 1 second and gone the next." "Get me a fleet-wide status report," Kyung-ho ordered, though his voice had lost its usual commanding tone. The reports came flooding in, each one more frightening than the last. Ships throughout the formation were simply ceasing to exist, not destroyed in battle, not retreating through hyperspace, but completely removed from reality, as if they had never been there at all. Dongmin, the science officer, was frantically working at his station, pulling up readings and calculations that made no sense. "Commander, I'm detecting massive spatial distortions around the vanishing points. It's like something is folding space-time itself." "In language I can understand," Kyung-ho snapped. "Sir, something is making our ships disappear by bending reality. I've never seen energy readings like this. It's beyond anything in our databases." Within 6 hours, the impossible had happened. The mighty Draconian conquest fleet, pride of their empire and terror of 100 worlds, had been reduced to a single ship, floating alone in the darkness. Commander Kyung-ho stood on his bridge, staring out at empty space, where once 1,000 vessels had held perfect formation. His crew sat at their stations in stunned silence. Some were quietly weeping. Others just stared at their instruments, unable to process what they had witnessed. The tactical display now showed just one green dot, their own flagship, isolated and vulnerable. "Sir," Jinwoo whispered, "what are your orders?" Kyung-ho had no answer. In his long military career, he had never faced an enemy that could make an entire fleet disappear without firing a shot. He had never imagined such power could exist. The blue planet below continued spinning peacefully, as if nothing had happened at all. Commander Kyung-ho stood alone on his bridge, staring out at the empty void where his mighty fleet had once floated. The silence was deafening. No radio chatter from other ships, no tactical updates, no routine status reports. Just the quiet hum of his flagship's engines and the sound of his own breathing. His crew moved like ghosts around their stations, checking and rechecking instruments that showed the same impossible reading over and over again. One ship. Just one ship remained from the 1,000 that had arrived to conquer Earth. "Sir," Sumin called softly from her communication station, "we're receiving an incoming transmission from the planet's surface." Kyung-ho felt his heart racing. Maybe this would finally provide some answers. Maybe the humans would gloat about their victory or demand his surrender. At least then he would understand what had happened to his fleet. "Put it through," he commanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The main screen flickered to life, and Kyung-ho found himself looking at something completely unexpected. Instead of a military commander or political leader, he saw a human woman sitting calmly behind a desk in what appeared to be some kind of advanced laboratory. The woman looked to be in her 40s, with short black hair and intelligent eyes behind thin glasses. She wore a simple white coat, and behind her, Kyung-ho could see equipment that looked far more sophisticated than anything he had expected from this supposedly primitive world. "Greetings, Commander Kyung-ho," the woman said in perfect Draconian. Her pronunciation was flawless, as if she had been speaking the language her entire life. "I am Dr. Hai-jin of Earth's Dimensional Research Division." Kyung-ho's blood ran cold. How did she know his name? How did she speak his language so perfectly? And what was this Dimensional Research Division she mentioned? "Your fleet has been relocated to a parallel space-time bubble using our displacement." "Technology," Dr. Hai-jin continued, as casually as if she were discussing the weather. "They are perfectly safe and unharmed, simply existing in a different layer of reality." "That's impossible," Kyung-ho snarled. "No species has that kind of technology. We've surveyed thousands of worlds across the galaxy." Dr. Hai-jin smiled slightly. "We've been monitoring your species conquest campaign for 50 years while developing appropriate countermeasures. Every world you attacked, every strategy you used, every weakness you displayed, we recorded it all." Before Kyung-ho could respond, his computer systems began receiving massive data downloads. Information flooded his screens faster than he could process it. His science officer Dongmin rushed to his station, trying to make sense of the incoming data. "Sir," Dongmin stammered, "this information, it's incredible. They're showing us their true technology." The data revealed the shocking truth about Earth. Those power plants that looked like simple nuclear reactors from orbit were actually antimatter generators producing more energy than entire star systems. The research facilities hidden beneath. Major cities contained technology that could bend space and time itself. "This can't be real," Jinwoo whispered, staring at his tactical display. "According to this data, They have quantum computing networks that can calculate the movement of every ship in the galaxy. Dr. Hai-Jin continued speaking while the data streams flowed. We calculated your fleet's arrival date, trajectory, and tactical formation 6 months ago. We knew exactly when and where you would appear, how you would position your ships, and what weapons you would attempt to use. Kyung-ho felt dizzy as the implications hit him. You've been watching us? For 50 years? Every conquest, every battle, every strategic decision your empire has made since you began expanding into this region of the galaxy. We have detailed files on every ship class in your fleet, psychological profiles of your key commanders, and complete maps of your territory. More data flooded the screens, star charts showing Draconian space in perfect detail, including secret military bases and hidden supply routes that were supposed to be classified at the highest levels. Technical specifications for every weapon system his species had ever built. Even personal information about Draconian leaders, including Kyung-ho himself. How? He asked weakly. They seeded monitoring devices throughout the galaxy decades ago, Dr. Hai-Jin explained. Tiny probes no larger than dust particles, completely undetectable by your sensors. They transmitted everything back to our quantum networks for analysis. Su Min looked up from her communication station with wide eyes. Sir, they're showing us surveillance footage from inside our own command centers. They watched our strategy meetings. They know everything. The revelation was staggering. While the Draconian Empire had been congratulating itself on its military superiority, humanity had been quietly studying them like specimens in a laboratory. Every secret weapon, every surprise tactic, every classified piece of information had been observed and catalogued by invisible human watchers. But why reveal yourselves now? Kyung-ho asked. If you've had this power for decades, why wait until we arrived at Earth? Dr. Hai-Jin's expression became more serious. Because Earth was never your real target, Commander. We've been using ourselves as bait, waiting for you to send a large enough fleet that removing it would cripple your empire's expansion into this sector of the galaxy. The truth hit Kyung-ho like a physical blow. Earth hadn't been randomly selected for conquest. The humans had deliberately made themselves appear weak and defensible, luring the Draconians into sending their largest available fleet directly into a carefully prepared trap. Your species has been manipulated for years, Dr. Hai-Jin continued. We influenced your scout reports, made Earth seem like an easy target, even suggested the timing of your attack through carefully placed information. Everything that led you here was part of our plan. Humanity had been playing a game so complex and long-term that the Draconians never even realized they were pieces being moved around the board. Dr. Hai-Jin leaned back in her chair, watching Commander Kyung-ho's face carefully through the transmission. She could see the shock and confusion in his reptilian features as he processed everything she had told him. His crew moved nervously around the bridge behind him, clearly terrified by the revelation that their mighty empire had been outplayed so completely. Now comes the important part, Commander, she said, her voice remaining calm and professional. You have 2 options available to you. Kyung-ho straightened up, trying to regain some of his military composure. What kind of options? Your fleet can remain in dimensional exile indefinitely. They exist in a stable pocket of space-time where they cannot harm anyone, including themselves. They have air, food, and all the basic necessities of life. But they cannot return to normal space or contact the outside universe. The commander's claws dug into his command console. And the alternative? You can return to normal space-time under our conditions. Dr. Hai-Jin gestured, and a document appeared on Kyung-ho's main screen. The terms are quite reasonable considering the circumstances. Kyung-ho read through the agreement, his eyes widening with each paragraph. The demands were unlike anything he had ever seen in military negotiations. No tribute payments, no territorial concessions, no ritual humiliation of defeated commanders. So you want us to share our star charts and technology? He asked. Yes, your people have traveled across the galaxy for centuries. You have detailed maps of regions we haven't explored yet, and your faster-than-light technology works differently from ours. Sharing this information benefits everyone. Submit to Earth-based monitoring, Jinwoo read aloud from his own display. What does that mean exactly? Dr. Heejin pulled up another screen. We would place observation stations at key points throughout Draconian space, not to spy on your daily lives, but to ensure you're no longer attacking other species. Think of it as parole supervision. Dongmin, the science officer, looked up from his readings. Commander, they're also asking us to help establish diplomatic contact with species we've conquered. That's correct, Dr. Heijin confirmed. Your empire has enslaved or destroyed hundreds of civilizations. We want you to help us contact the survivors and begin rebuilding their societies. Kyung-ho felt his head spinning. These weren't the terms of surrender he had expected. Where were the demands for unconditional submission? Where was the ritual humiliation of the defeated? This felt more like a job application than a military capitulation. I don't understand, he said finally. Why would you trust us to honor these agreements? We're your enemies. Dr. Hyojin smiled slightly. You're not the first conquest fleet we've handled this way, Commander. She gestured, and new images appeared on his screen. Kyung-ho saw other alien species he recognized: the Zelkan Empire, the Mordak Confederacy, the Twisted Claw dynasty. All of them had been major threats to peaceful civilizations just months ago. We've been quietly removing hostile fleets for months, she explained. Each time, we offer the same choice: exile or cooperation. Most choose cooperation once they understand the benefits. Benefits? Sumin asked from her communication station. Well, for one thing, you get to go home to your families instead of floating in dimensional limbo forever. For another, you become partners in rebuilding the galaxy instead of enemies. You have every civilized species in it. Dr. Hyojin pulled up another display showing a remarkable sight: ships from different alien species working together on massive construction projects. Former enemies now cooperating to build space stations, terraform damaged worlds, and establish trade networks. The Zelkan fleet that we disappeared 3 months ago. They're now helping us restore a dozen worlds they previously destroyed. The Mordak Confederacy is using their military logistics expertise to deliver humanitarian aid to refugee populations. Kyung-ho stared at the images in disbelief. You're building some kind of alliance. More than that. We're building a coalition of reformed species. Every empire that chooses cooperation over exile becomes part of something larger. Together, we're working to undo centuries of damage and create a galaxy where different species can coexist peacefully. The commander looked around his bridge at his officers. They all wore the same expression of stunned amazement. The idea of cooperation instead of conquest was so foreign to Draconian thinking that it took time to process. What about our honor? Jinwoo asked quietly. Draconians are warriors. How can we abandon our way of life? Dr. Heejin's expression softened. Who says you have to abandon being warriors? The galaxy is full of natural disasters, space pirates, and rogue AI systems that need to be fought. Your military skills would be incredibly valuable in protecting peaceful worlds instead of conquering them. She pulled up another image showing Draconian ships working alongside human vessels to evacuate civilians from a planet threatened by solar flares. This is Captain Minho of the former Draconian destroyer Steel Fang. He's now leading rescue operations for disaster relief. His crew tells me they feel more proud of this work than they ever did of their conquest missions. Commander Kyung-ho stared at the diplomatic agreement on his screen. Everything about this situation went against his training and instincts. Yet somehow, the humans had managed to end his empire's reign of terror, not with superior weapons or military tactics, but with paperwork and the promise of meaningful work. The galaxy's most feared predators had been neutralized by bureaucrats with clipboards and genuinely good job offers.